Live from London, this is BBC News. We'll be live at Westminster, where a new Speaker is about to be elected, and the Prime Minister will speak at the Dispatch Box for the first time. Earlier, Keir Starmer met England's mayors in Downing Street and held his second cabinet meeting. Final preparations ahead of the NATO summit in Washington, crucial for Ukraine and crucial for Joe Biden, dogged by questions about whether he's up to the job. Junior doctors' representatives arrive at the Department of Health for talks with Wes Streeting in the hope of ending the long-running pay disputes. And we build up to the semi-finals at the Euros. Spain against France today, England versus the Netherlands tomorrow. Hello and welcome to BBC News. We are just a short time away from the new Parliament's first sitting, with Labour ministers on the government front benches for the first time in more than a decade. We expect Parliament to convene around 2:30 this afternoon. For the many newly elected MPs, it'll be quite an experience. Well, the first thing we expect to happen is that Parliament will elect a Speaker to navigate debates. Then we'll hear from the party leaders, potentially all 7 of them, including the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. Later, he will head to Washington for that NATO summit and his first meeting with President Biden. Well, a busy day began with the gathering of England's regional mayors, as our political correspondent Helen Catt now reports.
A moment worth a selfie. England's directly elected mayors invited into Downing Street together for the first time. Half the population of England live in the areas these people represent. Inviting them into the heart of government now was a deliberate and symbolic move by Keir Starmer.
Having this meeting 4 days after I was invited by the King to form a government is a real statement of intent on my part, on our part, because as we have said over and over again, economic growth is the #1 mission of this Labour government of 2024, and that means that you are all absolutely central to it.
These metro mayors have some powers from government already in areas like transport and planning. But a key part of Labour's plan to grow the economy is to give up more to them. As the government says, many decisions are better made locally.
To have a council of the regions and nations meeting regularly just means we can be sure that the voice of Greater Manchester, of the north of England, is heard at the heart of Whitehall on an ongoing basis. And it's a big change to the way this country is run. And it's a very welcome change, a very positive change.
Relations are clearly already warm between a Labour Prime Minister and Labour mayors. But the relationship between Keir Starmer and Ben Houchin, the only surviving Conservative mayor, will also be important.
Ed and I have already said hello.
Ultimately, he won the election, right? And he is our Prime Minister. And if he succeeds, then the country succeeds. And I've offered my support to be able to help. I want to continue to deliver for my area. And he was keen to be able to see those growth plans put in place, and I look forward to working with him.
Yes, definitely.
Gone from government, along with the Conservatives, is their phrase levelling up. They introduced it to describe their plans to boost regional economies, but Labour called it a gimmick and said it hadn't worked.
It was firmly tippexed out of the department yesterday, so we're now the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. And why that's important for me is, well, one, Levelling Up was only ever a slogan. It wasn't a thing that people felt in their communities, but local government wasn't included, and people do feel local government in their communities. People know what the council does. People know how important those services are.
And as the mayors left Downing Street, the Cabinet began to arrive for their first regular meeting. Then it was the turn of Scottish Labour to pose for the cameras. While across the road at Parliament, another photo call, Reform's 5 MPs arrived in Westminster. This afternoon, attention switches to this building as Parliament meets in its new form for the first time.
Well, that was Helen Catt with that report. As we were saying in the introduction, a really busy hour and a half ahead. So let's head to Westminster. Let's speak to our correspondent, Ian Watson. Ian, just reflect in terms of what we're likely to see later this hour, because already we saw it in the piece, a really busy morning, a cabinet meeting those mayors from around England before, of course, he heads off to that NATO summit.
That's right. Labour want to give the impression they're hitting the ground running as a government, and therefore it's a packed diary. As you say, the Metro Mayors, the Cabinet, a flight to Washington for Keir Starmer, and indeed for the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, and the Defence Secretary, John Healey. He'll be saying a few words before the flight takes off. We're expecting him to meet President Biden, so it'll be his first time to, if you like, strut the world stage since the landslide victory of last week. But there's lots of parliamentary business too, not all of it the preserve of the Labour Party or Labour government, I have to say. So later on today, the Conservatives are going to be choosing who chairs their backbench 1922 committee. Now, I think that's interesting because it will have a crucial role in deciding the leadership contest rules when they take place, and also the duration of the likely contest. That's something which the Conservatives, with a much diminished contingent at Westminster, will be mulling over this evening. Before all that, I think, as you mentioned, Matthew, the election of the Speaker. Now, I'm not expecting any surprises here. Lindsay Hoyle wants to stand again. He was a Labour MP before he became Speaker of the House of Commons, with a massive Labour contingent of more than 400 MPs. I don't think they're going to cause an upset, but it will be the first opportunity we'll have to hear from Keir Starmer in the chamber as Prime Minister rather than Opposition Leader, and indeed from Rishi Sunak as Leader of the Opposition. He appointed an interim shadow cabinet yesterday, and we will be seeing, obviously, what the chamber looks like as well. Perhaps Labour MPs trying to crowd on to the government benches. One of them is Martin McCluskey, newly elected MP for Inverclyde, who is one of the contingent of Scottish MPs. There's been a kind of reversal of fortune, hasn't there, for the SNP? They had you reduced to one seat last time. They're now down to single figures. How did that come about?
You know, during this election, it was clear all the way through when we were talking to people on the doorstep that people really wanted change, and that was about, you know, moving on from the Tory government, but it was also about moving on from the SNP in Scotland, and that's why we were able to return a really strong group of 37 Scottish Labour MPs. We were in Downing Street this morning meeting with Keir Starmer, and I think those pictures say it all, that really big team of Scottish Labour MPs who are now here at Westminster to deliver for our constituents.
And what did it feel like yesterday? Because obviously it was the first meeting of the Parliamentary Labour Party. There's more than 400 people present. Some people hadn't seen the likes of that since 1997. Certainly in Scotland, you hadn't had as many Labour MPs since 2010.
I think it's hard not to appreciate the history of this. Labour's only won government from opposition now 5 times in 100 years. And being at that PLP meeting yesterday, all of those colleagues in the room, it was quite frankly overwhelming. But it really does impress on us the great privilege that we've got. So many of us have spent years either as activists in opposition or colleagues who are MPs in opposition, and now we've actually got the chance to get things done. And that's what we're here to do, and we're going to be delivering on the manifesto that people elected us on.
What is interesting, I think, in Scotland, perhaps rather than in England and Wales, is that obviously many of the things which people depend upon, the health service, the state of police, justice, the whole education system, that is really the preserve of the Scottish Parliament rather than the Westminster Parliament. So I'm wondering, given that you've snatched a seat from the SNP, in 4 or 5 years' time, what will success, what will change look like to a Scottish electorate in particular?
We were really clear in our manifesto about what we were going to deliver, and in Scotland that's about things like delivering GB Energy, headquartered in Scotland. It's about restoring the economy. It's about the New Deal for working people, which is going to apply to my constituents when we legislate for that. But I've always been really clear as well, the platform that you've got as a Member of Parliament is a platform that you can use for in all areas. So I'll be speaking out, and I'm sure my Scottish Labour colleagues will as well, about the situation in the Scottish NHS, where 1 in 6 people are on a NHS waiting list, and the crisis that we've got in other parts of the
So essentially we're campaigning ahead of the Scottish Parliament election.
And that too, this is a 2-stage process of change in Scotland. You know, we've had the UK election in 2026. I think it's 677 days at last count. We've got a Scottish Parliament election, and we're going to be looking forward to that as well and delivering the change across the board that people in Scotland need.
Yeah, very briefly, we've just seen Nigel Farage walk past, of course. There's going to be a contingent of Reform MPs as well in this Parliament. It wasn't just people voting for Labour, was it? People were voting in huge numbers for Liberal Democrats, more than 4 million people backing Nigel Farage. Isn't it the case that, to some extent, you did rather well because of the circumstances in Scotland, where the chief executive of the SNP was arrested. And in England, Labour did well because of a 20-point collapse in the Conservative vote. Your share of the vote was still only 34%, less than Jeremy Corbyn got in opposition.
That's the system that we've got in this country, and we were quite strategic in how we focused our resources and made sure that we targeted seats where we needed to win, because that's what our objective was. It was to regain government from opposition, which, as I said earlier, is something that Labour's only done 4 times now, 5 times in the past 100 years. So this is a real success for the Labour Party, and one that we are very proud of, but now we need to go on with delivering.
Okay, just one final question, because you have to go into to the chamber, but I'm presuming there'll be no opposition to Lindsay Hoyle being re-elected Speaker, that you'll be in there and backing this former Labour MP for a second term.
Not that I've heard, but I'll be going to the chamber and hearing what happens in the chamber, just like everyone else.
I'm sure you'll be very independent-minded.
Very, very independent-minded.
Martin McCluskey, thanks very much. That's the new MP for Inverclyde and Renfrewshire West. There's been some boundary changes, but the biggest change in Scotland, of course, is almost a reversal of fortune between the SNP and Labour. Labour reduced to 1 seat in the last Parliament, 6 MPs in the election before that. Now the SNP down to single figures. But let's see how that new Labour contingent deliver, given that they've also got a very powerful devolved Parliament.
Ian, thanks very much for now. We'll be back with Ian in about 20 minutes' time when we see that process to elect the new Speaker. Lindsay Hoyle is going to be the Speaker, but that whole process begins to play out at 2:30. So Ian will navigate us through all of that, and then we hear from the party leaders. Then we see the swearing in of all those MPs. So plenty from Westminster later in this hour. But let's stay with what we've been talking about. Let's speak to Labour's Tracy Babin, Mayor of West Yorkshire, who was at that meeting with Keir Starmer a little earlier. Tracy, welcome here to BBC News. Give me a sense of what that meeting was like.
Well, your package will have shown the energy and the enthusiasm and the excitement for a new phase. And honestly, the way that Keir Starmer has approached this is just incredible. I don't think anybody's had much sleep, but the fact that he then convened the mayors cross-party in Number 10 just tells you how he wants to run the country. We had a fantastic meeting talking about regions and nations, about planning, about how we can be helpful, growing the economy. Obviously, that's what mayors do. We're good at it, putting more money into people's pockets, and how we can, across the country, have impact in our communities, but also help Rachel Reeves with her mission to grow the economy by growing our regions. Well, it was a fantastic meeting.
As you're talking, we're seeing you taking that selfie along with all your colleagues outside of Number 10. Huge grins, just as there is as we're talking now. But it was interesting, Keir Starmer saying, look, you guys have the skin in the game and more power should be shifted from Westminster, Whitehall to all of you. More exactly, what sort of powers are you talking about?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because when you're running an election campaign, it's sort of easy to say, more powers to the regions. But when you've been out of power for 14 years, to then follow that up with tangible evidence, and that came out of this meeting, I do feel very reassured that we're going to see a real step change. That Council of Regions and Nations, but also a single settlement. You will know that there are trailblazer deals in Greater Manchester and West Midlands that are single pots of funding. You can team and ladle your money. You don't have to have bidding wars or beauty contests for small pots of funding. That's what we were talking about. We were also talking about transport. We were talking about skills, how we can have more flexibilities around skills to make sure that we have the workforce for the future. It was a wide-ranging but thoughtful discussion. It was an hour, so it was serious. It wasn't just a talking shop. Lots of great takeaways after it.
Now, the Deputy Prime Minister has been encouraging local growth plans, and of course that is so crucial with the national plan for growth that the Labour government has been stressing in these early days. Do you have a plan, any ideas of how you can actually do that in your area?
Well, that's absolutely right. All the mayors, you won't be surprised to know, we have our own local growth plan. But Keir has offered us to work more centrally with the government to understand what our growth plans are, so that, Rachel Reeves could stand up in the autumn and say, I have tasked the UK mayors to deliver my 1.5 million homes. You know, we can be really helpful in that delivery. And of course, there are new mayoralties in East Midlands. Claire Ward, who used to be an MP, is now the mayor. They're just setting up their office, they're setting up the systems. But there are mayors who are a bit more mature and, you know, are in a position where they can really be impactful on their dynamic growth plans and working closely with government. And the fact that Angela Rayner, as you say, the Deputy Prime Minister was there, but also Pat McFadden and Sue Gray, and, you know, the wheels of government have started to work, and mayors are very much at the heart of that. It was a really great moment, and we're delighted to be helpful as well.
Tracy Bradman, good of you to take time to speak to us here on our programme. Thanks for joining us. Thank you. Well, as I mentioned earlier, Sir Keir Starmer will head to the NATO summit a little later today. Leaders will be discussing Ukraine, of course, which is holding a day of mourning after one of the worst Russian missile attacks in months. 38 people were killed yesterday when 5 cities across the country were attacked. Russia has denied targeting civilian infrastructure, insisting the strikes had been aimed at military facilities. But in the last few hours, the UN said there is a high likelihood the hospital suffered a direct hit from a Russian missile. Ukraine's President Zelensky, who will also be at that NATO summit, says Russia must answer for those attacks. James Waterhouse has sent this from Kyiv.
It's a view you wouldn't have seen yesterday. For a Ukrainian emergency worker, demolition is firmly part of the job description. This was a Russian missile which especially left a mark because of who and what it hit. A children's hospital full of patients. Dmytro Ivanov leads a team of volunteers who help clear missile debris, created with the full-scale invasion, and busier than ever. How do you feel doing?
It's our ordinary work, such activities. But yesterday our feelings was we were in despair because it's a hospital for children. It's very terrible.
Kyiv has strongly rejected Moscow's claim this was caused by a Ukrainian air defense missile, saying it has evidence it was Russian and deliberately launched.
This attack has posed difficult questions for Ukraine. Several cruise missiles hit their targets in the centre of the city, and as far as Kyiv is concerned, the need for air defences has never been greater. Missiles do terrorise, but thus far they haven't weakened Ukrainian resolve. But if the risk to life increases, that will only impact morale.
Valentina, a nurse, was working on this ward when the attack happened. She tells us some of the hospital's 600 or so patients are being denied critical care.
Here we help children with complicated diseases. It's an important place for the whole country. I cannot believe my eyes that such tragedy happened here. It's a horror for Ukraine and for everyone. We ask the world to stop this war, to stop this nightmare, for our children not to suffer.
Cleanups like this are being replicated across Kyiv, with bodies still being found in other districts. This is one of the worst strikes since the start of the full-scale invasion, now 2.5 years ago. For Ukrainians, it feels longer. James Waterhouse, BBC News, Kyiv.
Well, let's look with a bit more detail about that attack yesterday, because experts consulted by the BBC Verified team say it is highly likely the children's hospital in Ukraine suffered a direct hit from a Russian missile. Moscow claims the blast was caused by Ukrainian air defences. Well, here's our Verified correspondent, Merlin Thomas.
This was the scene in the Ukrainian capital Kyiv yesterday, part of a children's hospital badly damaged. And it happened during a Russian airstrike. But Russia say this was damage caused by a Ukrainian air defense missile. Ukraine says it's found remnants of a Russian cruise missile. So who's right? 2 videos we verified are crucial to investigating Russian claims. In the first, you can see a huge plume of smoke in the distance before a moment of impact. And the second video is crucial. And we've slowed it right down and we've zoomed in and we followed this missile that you can see just coming into view here moments before impact. Now, it's worth bearing in mind this is still a very blurry video. The freeze frame is very blurry, but we showed this video to 6 weapons experts who regularly review grainy footage like that. And all of them said that this is not a surface-to-air defence missile, as the Russians have claimed. For example, one of them, Timothy Wright from the International Institute for Strategic Studies, said the missile's speed, angle of attack, profile, and especially its sound, the sound of a high-pitched turbofan, is very prominent and a dead giveaway, and are consistent with an air-breathing land-attack cruise missile. Now, this is a Russian cruise missile, and one of its identifying features, I'm going to show you this, is this turbo engine at the rear right here. And that's what some of our experts have focused on. Now let's go back to the freeze frame. This is the freeze frame of that video, and if I just zoom in, this tail end, the rear end, what I just showed you is exactly what our experts have been comparing it with. And Andrei Ganon is one of them, and he said it's almost certainly a KH-1. The distinguishing feature of that missile is the turbofan engine at the rear that juts out, appearing like a small box. Now, nobody's been absolutely definitive about the exact missile used, and they all agreed that it was likely an air-launched Russian missile, and 5 of the 6 mentioned a Russian KH-101 as a possibility, in line with what Ukraine has said. Now, Ukraine's security services have posted photos of what it says are debris of the Russian weapon at the site of the strike, specifically the KH-101 missile. Now, we can't verify these images ourselves. This isn't the first time Russia has claimed that Ukrainian weapons have accidentally hit their own cities. At BBC Verify, we'll continue to examine this claim as this story develops.
Merlin Thomas there at BBC Verify. Before we move on, I just want to show you pictures from the last few minutes from Moscow that have just come into us, because these from the Kremlin with Vladimir Putin. In the next few moments, you will see him giving India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi the Order of Friendship. Pictures about to show you that, and of course those meetings have been going on since yesterday, but certainly Narendra Modi today telling Vladimir Putin that war cannot solve problems, and urged peace on a trip to Moscow over 2 years into the Ukrainian offensive. There, the Order of Friendship just been given to India's Prime Minister. So Narendra Modi talking about war not being able to solve problems, solutions and peace talks can't succeed among bombs, guns and bullets. But of course, it will be the nature of any peace talks. That is what is the roadblock at the moment. And of course, the meeting, this sort of bear hug that we saw today and we saw yesterday at the country residence, that instantly prompted a rebuke from Volodymyr Zelensky. He wrote on social media, "It is a huge disappointment and a devastating blow to peace efforts to see the leader of the world's largest democracy hug the world's most bloody criminal in Moscow on such a day." So those are the pictures from the last few minutes from Moscow. Now here, Thames Water says it has enough money left to last until May of next year, but will need additional cash to keep going. The UK's largest water company, which has faced intense criticism over releasing sewage into rivers and streams and on the cost of leaks, released its latest financial report this morning. Here's our business correspondent, Theo Leggett.
Raw sewage overflowing into rivers and streams, mounting leaks from piping and crumbling and failing infrastructure. These are the obvious signs of trouble at Thames Water, a company which serves 16 million people in London and the Thames Valley. But beneath the surface, it's also suffering financially, and today's figures are far from reassuring. The company did make a profit before tax over the past year of just over £157 million. But that was dwarfed by a major increase in debt, from just under £14 billion a year ago to £15.2 billion. And although it does have £1.8 billion worth of ready funding, Thames says that's only enough to keep it going until May next year. Speculation's been mounting that if Thames can't find new investment, it might have to be taken over by the government, something ministers say they want to avoid.
Why on earth should bill payers pay twice? They've already paid for 14 years through their bills for a water service that in many parts of the country they just haven't been getting. The idea on top of that, we then take taxpayers' money to bail it out, frankly, is for the birds, it's not going to happen.
For these hardy swimmers taking to the Thames itself in Teddington today, the most pressing issue was muck in the water rather than Thames Water's finances. The company admitted last year the number of sewage discharges more than doubled due to prolonged heavy rainfall.
I'd like them to think more positively about water management and not think it's okay just to be fined and dump sewage in the water every time there's a strong rainfall.
I'm just really worried about sewage going into the water, the fact that it's actually legal for them to discharge sewage into the water when it's been raining. And the Environment Agency and Ofwat seem to have very little say over the matter.
Later this week, the regulator Ofwat will give its verdict on 5-year business plans provided by water companies across the country. Thames Water wants to hike consumer bills by up to 44%, in part to pay for work like this, replacing 100-year-old pipes with new ones. Ultimately, people need water, and sewage has to be dealt with. And whether it's Thames Water's customers or taxpayers, someone will have to foot the bill. Theo Leggett, BBC News.
Now, let me show you the live pictures from the Commons that we can see here. And there you see the absolutely packed chamber. I'm just going to put the microphones up because you can see them applauding there. Well, let me take you through what we expect in the coming minutes, and it is absolutely fascinating, isn't it, to see the new Parliament with all the new MPs, with the Labour MPs, so many of them packed there onto the government benches the first time in 14 years, and a shrunken, much shrunken Conservative opposition sitting opposite, and the various other parties, the SNPs, suddenly there with fewer MPs, a lot fewer. And in the next few minutes, what we're going to see is the new Father of the House, the Conservative Sir Edward Lee, takes the Clerk's chair, and then Blackrod arrives to summon the MPs over to the House of Lords. Then there, a Royal Commission will be read directing MPs to choose a Speaker. They then return to the Commons to actually then carry out that process. Now, I don't think there's going to be a vote in itself, because if the former Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, indicates he wishes to be chosen as Speaker, then Edward Lee will call a member to move that motion, which once agreed on by the House, then sees Lindsay Hoyle take the chair as Speaker-elect, express thanks, and then call some senior members for brief congratulatory speeches before then suspending the sitting for a short time. Then later on, we will see individual MPs swearing in. So that is the choreography of what is supposed to be happening. So a packed Commons chamber, but not for very much longer. They're sitting there waiting. We think, from the indication, it's about 5 or 10 minutes away before Blackrod invites them over to the House of Lords. You will then see them go through the central lobby where we have our cameras there. I can already see a lot of people lining central lobby, so ready to watch that scene. But we will be there with Ian Watson, our political correspondent. We will navigate you through all of these historic events in the coming minutes. But there you see the new chamber with all of those new MPs, nerve-wracking, excitement, getting to know their way around, getting to know the procedures. Even what I've just read out, it is even complicated in electing a new Speaker, let alone how you put down amendments, how you vote, where your office is, all of that, the absolute myriad of corridors that is around that Commons chamber. But there the scene is set, so we'll return there in the next little while. It gives me a chance to just whip through a few other stories though first, because a snap inspection of one of the UK's main immigration removal centres has found widespread drug use, violence and conditions described as truly shocking. The Chief Inspector of Prisons visited Harmondsworth IRC in West London in February. He alerted the then Home Secretary James Cleverly to his findings, but didn't receive a response. Mr Cleverly hasn't yet commented. The Radio 2 DJ Steve Wright died from a ruptured stomach ulcer and an infection of the lining of the abdomen. The long-standing presenter who hosted shows on BBC Radio for more than 4 decades died suddenly in February at the age of 69. The former Welsh striker Craig Bellamy has been named as the new manager of Wales. He replaces Rob Page after he was sacked last month after Wales failed to make it to the Euros. Bellamy, who won 78 caps for Wales, has signed a 4-year deal. Let's turn to the Euros because Gareth Southgate's England side had their final day of training today before their semi-final tomorrow night. They'll face the Netherlands and the pressure is on to reach the final of the tournament for the second successive time. John Watson is with the England fans in Dortmund.
At the only English pub here in Dortmund, they're gearing up for a busy few days. Around 30,000 England supporters are expected in the city, with many stopping here at the Londoner pub, a short walk from the stadium.
We're fully booked for it. We've got 2 very large groups coming and some smaller groups coming as well. So yeah. I really think England's name is on it because they haven't played that well so far, and suddenly we find ourselves in a semi-final, and most people I speak to can't believe we're in the semi-final.
England will hope they can find their rhythm here tomorrow to reach back-to-back European Championship finals. And as the fans gather, they remain confident manager Gareth Southgate can take them all the way to the final.
In Gareth we trust, that's what we keep saying.
It's not good viewing, but we're getting the results.
We're getting it.
I just think the way things are going, I think our name's on the trophy, I've got to be honest. I just think...
I'm confident we're going to do it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I really am.
Here we go. Trent takes the net off!
England have ridden their luck at times, requiring extra time and penalties to beat Switzerland in the quarter-finals. Gareth Southgate has at times faced criticism from the fans, but there was no sign of that as once again England found a way to win.
To be honest, I don't really understand the criticism. I think what he's done for the country, for us as players as well, and you know, I think he's really took us to the next level. I think no manager's really been as successful as him as what he's doing recently.
Now, England will hope, come tomorrow, they won't be calling time on their tournament.
Let's hope so. There is an England press conference much later in the afternoon, much later in our programme, but we'll carry that live here on BBC News. But let's settle down for the next, 25, 30 minutes, because at Westminster, the absolute focus. Let me show you the chamber of the House of Commons, and there you see all of the MPs squeezed inside. It's only on these really massive days that you have all of the MPs in attendance, and you can just see what a tight squeeze it is, especially on the government benches, because 411 Labour MPs are squeezed in there. And a little later we will see Sir Keir Starmer stand up at the dispatch box as Prime Minister and say his first words from there. So all of that lies ahead. We think that part of it happens in about half an hour's time. We'll also hear from Rishi Sunak, his first occasion to speak from the opposite dispatch box as the leader of the opposition. So it is a very new world for both those leaders, and of course for all of those other parties after the variety of results. Great results for the Liberal Democrats, 72 MPs there, a devastating night for the SNP with a much reduced presence now at Westminster. But we're going to go through a process here where, first of all, we see a new Speaker elected. We pretty much know it'll be Sir Lindsay Hall, who was the Speaker of the last Parliament, so he will actually be re-elected. But in the next little while, what we have is Sir Edward Lee, who is the father of the House. He will take the seat there, the chair, at the table before Black Rod arrives from the House of Lords to summon all of those MPs. So they will leave the chamber, and there is a packed House of Lords, and there it is, absolutely on cue, that we see the start of the process. And what we will see is that eventually Black Rod moves to the Commons and invites all of those MPs, summons them to the House of Lords. And there, a Royal Commission will be read that directs MPs to actually choose the Speaker. Let's just listen into this bit. Well, the direction is given, and out Black Rod goes, and the next camera position you will see is in Central Lobby, and you can see lots of crowds gathered there because this historic event of the new Parliament, and of course we have a change of government for the first time in 14 years, and there across Central Lobby it is just a really short distance between the two chambers, but we'll be there at the door of the Commons in the next few seconds, and then all of those MPs will make the reverse journey back to the Lords. They'll be directed to elect the Speaker, but when that actually happens, on some occasions, and there you see them craning their necks, waiting for that moment, but eventually, when we get back to the Commons, there won't actually be...
It's Black Rod. Open the door. Black Rod!
Members of the House of Commons, the Lords who are duly authorised by virtue of His Majesty's Commission to declare the opening of Parliament, desire the presence of this Honourable House in the House of Peers to hear the Commission read.
The Father of the House leads the way, and all of those MPs will follow. And as I was saying just a few seconds ago, they will make the reverse journey to the House of Lords, where the Royal Commission is read. And that is the moment they are told to return to the Commons and actually elect that Speaker. I was just saying before I paused that sometimes there is an actual vote, but not this time, because if the former Speaker indicates that they wish to continue as Speaker, then there is no formal vote. There will be a motion moved, and then the new Speaker is reluctantly dragged. You remember those pictures, reluctantly dragged from their seat, that very much part of the tradition, to the Speaker's chair. So there we are, back in the House of Lords.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons, we are commanded by His Majesty to let you know that it has not been convenient for him to be present here on this day in his royal person. He hath thought fit by letters patent under the Great Seal to empower several lords therein named to do all things in His Majesty's name which are to be done on His Majesty's part in this Parliament, as by the letters patent will more fully appear.
Charles III, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of our other realms and territories King, Head of the Commonwealth, Defender of the Faith. To all to whom these presents shall come, greeting. Whereas, by the advice of our Council, for certain arduous and urgent affairs concerning us, the state and defence of our United Kingdom and the Church, we have ordered a certain Parliament to be holden at our city of Westminster on Tuesday the 9th day of July instant. And forasmuch as for divers causes and considerations we cannot conveniently be present in our royal person in our said Parliament upon the said Tuesday the 9th day of July, know ye that we, trusting in the fidelity, discretion and care of the most reverend Father in God and our faithful counsellor Justin Portal, Archbishop of Canterbury, Primate of all England and Metropolitan, our well-beloved and faithful counsellor Shabana Mahmood, Chancellor of Great Britain, and others our counsellors hereinafter mentioned, by the advice of our said council, do give and grant, by the tenor of these presents, unto the said Justin Portal, Archbishop of Canterbury, Shabana Mahmood, Chancellor of Great Britain, John Francis, Lord Macfall of Alcluith, Lord Speaker, Angela Evans, Baroness Smith of Basildon, Lord Privy Seal, Richard Mark, Lord Newby, William Herbert, Lord Laming, Nicholas Edward, Lord True, or any three or more of them, full power in our name to begin and hold our said Parliament, and to open and declare, and cause to be opened and declared, the causes of holding the same, and to proceed upon the said affairs in our said Parliament, and in all matters arising therein, and to do everything which for us and by us, and for the good government of our said United Kingdom, and other our dominions thereto belonging, shall be therein to be done. And also, if necessary, to continue, adjourn, and prorogue our said Parliament. Commanding also, by the tenor of these presents, with the assent of our said Council, as well all and every, the archbishops, bishops, lords, baronets, and knights, as all others whom it concerns, to meet in our said Parliament, that to the same Archbishop of Canterbury, Chancellor of Great Britain, and others our councillors aforesaid, or any three or more of them, they diligently intend in the premises in the form aforesaid. In witness whereof, we have caused these our letters to be made patent. Witness ourself at Westminster, the 9th day of July, in the 2nd year of our reign. By the King himself, signed with his own hand.
My Lords and members of the House of Commons, we have it in command from His Majesty to let you know that as soon as members of both houses shall be sworn, the causes of His Majesty calling this Parliament will be declared to you. And it being necessary that a Speaker of the House of Commons should be first chosen, it is His Majesty's pleasure that you, members of the House of Commons, repair to the place where you are to sit, and there proceed to the choice of some proper person to be your Speaker, and that you present such person, whom you shall so choose, here for His Majesty's royal approbation.
Well, there the instruction to choose a speaker is read out, and they will now return back to the Commons chamber and do exactly that. As we follow that reverse journey, let's bring in Alice Lilly, Senior Researcher at the Institute for Government, who is watching, like all of us, these scenes from Parliament. Alice, welcome here to BBC News. We're seeing the tradition of centuries played out for a new Parliament.
Yes, absolutely. I think anybody listening to the words of that Royal Commission being read out just now in the House of Lords will have noticed The language was not very modern. It sounded quite archaic. But as you say, what that really is centuries and centuries of tradition rooted in all sorts of historic events in Parliament. That does have some kind of constitutional significance. So although it sounds very strange to modern ears, it is really just the latest representation of something that has been going back in this Parliament for centuries and centuries. And I'm sure, particularly for those new MPs who are there for the first time today, this will feel like a very significant and quite remarkable moment in their lives.
Yes, like so many of the experiences, they're actually going through firsts in all of them, but it is quite an extraordinary scene, all of this. But as Edward Lee, the Father of the House, heads back to the Commons, just take us through what we're going to see in the next little while, because I'm right in saying that if the Speaker indicates that he wants to continue, because Lindsay Hoyle, of course, the Speaker in the last Parliament, there's no actual vote, am I right?
So what will happen is, as you say, the former Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, will be asked if he wishes to continue. If he does, he will be able to make some brief remarks to the House. And at that point, a motion will be put before MPs asking them to essentially accept that he will be re-elected Speaker. There is not usually a formal vote in the way of MPs going through the division lobbies, but we will hear a vote.
Under the provisions of Standing Order Number 1A, I am now required to ascertain whether Sir Lindsay Hoyle is willing to be chosen as Speaker, and I call Sir Lindsay Hoyle.
Firstly, I'd like to thank my constituents of Chorley for returning me to this House and allowing me to put myself forward again as Speaker. It is an honour to serve the people of Chorley, as I have done steadfastly for the last 44 years as a councillor and on that local authority, then a Member of Parliament for the last 27 years. I would also like to thank my wife Catherine and daughter Emma and the staff in Chorley in that constituency office for all their support. Of course, for me, it was the first time in my political career campaigning without hearing the wise words of my late father Doug, giving me his opinions on how to campaign. He was always going to give me that. Whatever the polls were doing, whatever needed to be said, I can still hear him now saying, "Don't stop now, you have to keep going." Well, I've got to say, Doug, after 25,000 steps a day during the campaign, I certainly did do that. I want to say a warm welcome to all the new members of the House. May I also welcome Sir Edward Lee to his new role as Father of the House, and to Diane Abbott in her place as Mother of the House. Sir Edward, you have served this place and your constituents for 41 years. Diane, you have served for 37 years and broken many glass ceilings along the way. Thank you to the former Father of the House, Sir Peter Bottomley, and of course to the Mother of the House, Baroness Harriet Harman. And can I thank them for the support that they gave me during the speakership. Sir Edward, I know you're a man that respects traditions. Indeed, when you ran for Speaker in 2019, you were keen to bring back the use of the wig for the Speaker. Hopefully, though, you'll look kindly on me and agree I still have a decent enough head of hair, although not quite as luscious as the former member for Lichfield. You know I'm only joking, Mike. I was thinking just the other day, you must be the only person that went to bed last Thursday evening as a father of 6 children and woke up the father of 649. On a serious note, it's been an absolute privilege to serve this House as the 158th Speaker. I've got to say that 4.5 years have flown. With the authority of the Chair comes great responsibility, which is something I've never taken lightly or for granted. I know from experience that decisions have consequences. But with experience comes wisdom, and if re-elected, I will be guided by that as I continue to be fair, impartial and independent. To say I have had the most unusual speakership in the last Parliament is an understatement. From ensuring that the House could function during the COVID pandemic, and to new members, they might want to Google the Rees-Mogg conga, to adapting technology developed during COVID to allow President Zelensky to be the first world leader to broadcast to MPs in this chamber. Yeah. It was, of course, an honour to represent this House at the lying in state of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, to present the address to the new King in Westminster Hall, to attend his coronation. Needless to say, in this role, you need staying power. I've already been Speaker during the tenure of 3 Prime Ministers, 2 monarchs and 1 Jim Shannon. There has never been a dull moment, but it is an incredible job which I want to continue. There is so much more still to do. Because I care about the reputation and the standards of this House. I care about enabling the government to do its job in this chamber and for the opposition to hold the government to account. I care about supporting backbenchers to pursue issues which are important to their constituencies. And as a backbench member for many years, I know how important that is. And I care about you individually, both as members who have a job to do in this building, as people trying to do those jobs with constituents, staff and families to consider. I've worked tirelessly and will continue to do so to keep members safe, which is the fundamental part of protecting democracy. On that basis, I submit myself to the House as your Speaker, seeking to be your champion.
The Honourable Member for Lancaster and Wyre to move the motion.
Thank you, Sir Edward. I beg to move that Sir Lindsay Hoyle do take the chair of the House of Commons. The best thing, as far as I'm concerned, about having Lindsay as Speaker is how good it is to have someone in the chair who doesn't have an accent. And I've been talking to lots of my constituents over the past 6 weeks, and they agree with me too. So I figured it out, Lindsay, is that we're not the ones with the accents, it's everyone else. But seriously, Lindsay is a great champion for Lancashire, just as he is for this House of Commons. And none of us in Lancashire could have imagined that Nancy Pelosi would walk those famous cobbles of Coronation Street. But Lindsay, you did it. Because it seems there's no part of Lancashire's cultural reputation that is out of bounds for Lindsay when hosting international speakers. Indeed, having a pint of mild in the Robe's return with Nancy Pelosi. And it's a great pleasure today to be able to speak about my good friend from Chorley. But Lindsay, I have several friends from Chorley, oh dear. including my office manager, Stephen, who often regales my Lancaster constituency office with tales of his childhood from Lancashire's second town. And one of my favourite anecdotes is of Chorley Zoo, and I didn't know Chorley had a zoo. Apparently it's known as Chog Zoo, which might be a first reference of Chog in Hansard, which is the slang for Chorley. But upon further investigation, this zoo was in fact Pet's Corner in Astley Park. However, to this day, I suspect a young Stephen was actually mistaking the Hoyle household menagerie as an actual zoo. Because with cats, dogs, parrots and tortoises, Lindsay Hoyle really does live out that truism that we are a nation of animal lovers. But if you head 3 hours south from Lancashire, you'll find yourself here. And arriving in this grand building as a newly elected member is daunting. The weight of pressure that you feel to deliver for your constituents, to use parliamentary procedures that seem so confusing, to bring about the change that you've promised can be immense. And it can be difficult to know where to start. But a good place to start is by electing a good Speaker of the House of Commons, one with experience of eventualities that could not be foreseen. Lindsay recalled in his remarks the COVID restrictions we needed to adapt to at speed during the pandemic. Indeed, he is the Speaker who steered us through that pandemic and steered us through those re-smog congers. He adapted procedures for the times we found ourselves in. But it's also important to know that you have a Speaker who champions the voices of us backbenchers, one who ensures that all voices, government and opposition, are heard. Our Speaker is fair, impartial and independent. Newly elected members will find a great friend in our Speaker, and I know I have. Being from Lancashire myself, I have had the good fortune of knowing Lindsay before I was elected here, and over the years he has been a great source of advice and guidance, some of which I took and some of which I chose to ignore. But all I can say is that the advice that I ignored, I regret ignoring and live to tell the consequences. So, despite being annoyingly right about many things, which is a good Lancashire trait, by the way, he will ensure that his door is open to all members at times of need. And I can vouch that he does a good brew. It's Yorkshire tea, though. But if you prefer something from the right side of the Pennines, from the Red Rose County, it's the only place on this estate I've managed to get a hot Vimto outside of my own office. However, Lindsay, we all have our character flaws, and regrettably, Lindsay does not support Lancashire's finest football team, Barrow. Instead, donning the colours of Bolton Wanderers. But note, we have a Bolton Wanderers fan, but note that is a team which has both blue and red on its crest, and I think that exemplifies Mr. Speaker's even-handedness. And as a proud champion of Lancashire's rugby league tradition, when outside of Westminster, his favourite place is cheering on Warrington Wolves or, in the summer months, Lancashire County Cricket. And like all good sports people, Lindsay knows fair play and hard work. And for all those reasons, and so many more, I am proud and honoured to propose that Sir Lindsay Hoyle takes the chair today.
The question is that Sir Lindsay Hoyle do take the chair of this House as Speaker. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of that opinion say no to the contrary. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Order, order.
Get in.
There it is, duly elected, and this, the tradition, and he reluctantly taken from his seat to the Speaker's chair. Lovely words from Sir Lindsay Hoyle as he spoke to MPs.
Before I take the chair of Speaker-elect, I wish to thank the House for the honour that is again bestowed upon me. I am aware that it is the greatest honour it can give any of its members. I propose to do all within my power to preserve and cherish its best traditions. Right, can I just also say thank you to both of you, Kat and Debbie. Thank you. Before I call the Prime Minister, could I just say that we have a busy day ahead of us with further ceremony in the House of Lords and the most returning honourable members to be sworn in. I therefore encourage speeches from Prime Ministers, the opposition and other leaders that I would discourage, that I would hope they can be quite brief today. And I do hope that members will respect that it is only leaders, and I'm sorry for other members that may wish to speak. But I've got to say a big thank you to the staff of this House for the way that they've ensured all new members, the way that they've been brought in and shown the way around. I hope the bodies and everybody involved has made a real difference. I've got to say, it is light years from '97 when I first came in, and may we continue with that. I now call the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker-elect, on behalf of the whole House, may I be the first to congratulate you on your re-election. Those of us here in the previous Parliament will always remember the wonderful support that you provided to the former Conservative member, Craig McKinley, and his inspiring battle to overcome his injuries from sepsis. All of those returning will remember, as I do, the speech he gave just a few weeks ago, which was inspiring and moving, and we wish him well. And I had the privilege on that occasion to meet his family and his young daughter. That support, Mr. Speaker-elect, was characteristic of your profound care for the interests and welfare of all members, especially backbenchers. And I'm grateful that new members will be able to look to you as they begin the great privilege of serving their constituents in this House. And may I too welcome each and every one of the new members who is here for the first time starting their great responsibility. May I also thank Sir Edward for presiding over this election and congratulate him on becoming the new Father of the House. More than 40 years of continuous service. That is a stunning achievement. And now, back in the 1970s, Sir Edward wrote a book described as, and I quote, a personal collection of quotations dating from 3000 BC to the present day, which might be said to cast some light on the workings of the Tory mind. Mr. Speaker-elect, after the last 6 weeks, I think it might be time for a new edition. Mr. Speaker-elect, you preside over a new Parliament, the most diverse Parliament by race and gender this country has ever seen. And I'm proud of the part that my party has played in that, proud of the part that every party has played in that, including in this intake, the largest cohort of LGBT plus MPs of any Parliament in the world. And given all that diversity, Mr. Speaker-elect, I hope you will not begrudge me for a slight departure from convention to also pay tribute to the new Mother of the House, Diane Abbott, who has done so much in her career over so many years to fight for a Parliament that truly represents modern Britain. We welcome her back to her place. And now, as in any new Parliament, we have the opportunity and the responsibility to put an end to a politics that has too often seemed self-serving and self-obsessed, and to replace that politics of performance with the politics of service. Because service is a precondition for hope and trust, and the need to restore trust should weigh heavily on every member here, new and returning alike. We all have a duty to show that politics can be a force for good. So whatever our political differences, it's now time to turn the page, unite in a common endeavour of national renewal, and make this new Parliament a Parliament of service. Thank you.
I now call the Leader of the Opposition, Rishi Sunak.
Well, Mr. Speaker-elect, I'm pleased to join the Prime Minister in welcoming you back to the Speaker's chair. And can I also praise the wonderful speech from the Honourable Member for Lancaster and Wyre? And can I start by congratulating the Prime Minister on his election victory? And as he takes on his formidable task, he and his family deserve the good wishes of all of us in this House. Now, in our politics, we can argue vigorously, as the Prime Minister and I did over the past 6 weeks, but still respect each other. And whatever disputes we may have in this Parliament, I know that everyone in this House will not lose sight of the fact that we are all motivated by our desire to serve our constituents, our country, and advance the principles that we honourably believe in. And to every member, new and old, let me welcome them to their places and congratulate them on their results. To be sent to this place by one's constituents is the greatest honour, privilege, and responsibility. I know every one of us will be trying to repay the trust placed in us, and I look forward to continuing to represent the interests of my own rural North Yorkshire constituents. One of the great aspects of our system is no matter how high you rise, you still have that constituency which keeps you grounded. And my advice to all members is to appreciate the role that you have every day that you have it. And for those of us in my party, let me begin with a message to those who are no longer sitting behind me. I am sorry. We have lost too many diligent, community-spirited representatives whose wisdom and expertise will be missed in the debates and discussions ahead. It is important that after 14 years in government, the Conservative Party rebuilds. So now we will take up the crucial role of His Majesty's official opposition, professionally, effectively and humbly. And restoring trust begins by remembering that being here is an opportunity to do what those we serve expect of us. And in our case, that means holding the new government to account. Can I congratulate the Father of the House, the member for Gainsborough? My right honourable friend has given 41 years of remarkable, dedicated service to this House and his constituency. I know full well how ferociously my right honourable friend fights for the interests of his constituents, and I applaud him for that. My right honourable friend is also testament to the benefits of an early morning dip in the Serpentine. And members may be interested to note that the Bottomleys have also had a big influence on my right honourable friend's career. It was in 1974 that my right honourable friend ran against Arthur Bottomley in Middlesbrough in his first effort to enter this place. And today, he takes over from Sir Peter, who will be missed. Yeah. And can I also congratulate the new mother of the House, the member for Hackney North and Stoke Newington. We have our differences on policy, but no one can deny the Right Honourable Lady's important role in this House and the inspiration for so many young women of colour that she has provided. Yeah. The Right Honourable Lady is true in every sense of the word, a trailblazer. Yeah. And can I join with you, Mr. Speaker-elect, to thank House staff for their hard work in welcoming our new colleagues to this House and their service over the coming Parliament. And finally, may I congratulate you, Mr. Speaker-elect. When you first ascended to the Speaker's chair, you did so with a healthy majority, and that was testament to your wide appeal and the confidence in which this House places in you and your judgments. The last Conservative Prime Minister, the Right Honourable John Major, who spoke from these opposition benches, said about the role of the Speaker, "The job specification is pretty daunting. The patience of Job and the wisdom of Solomon are only the basic requirements. We demand also impartiality, independence and fairness." Well, Mr. Speaker-elect, you have shown over the past 4.5 years how to protect that careful balance. The last few years in this House have been at times difficult, and you, sir, have always brought this House together. That was clear when we lost our colleague, Sir David Amess. And I know your guidance and support for members then was greatly appreciated. It is a privilege to be in this House. Our democracy is powerful, and as we have witnessed, it can be definitive. But I know that this House will, true to its best traditions, hold the executive to account. And I know that Mr. Speaker-elect will facilitate that. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker-elect, I have no doubt that we will face difficult days together in this place, but I also know that I speak for the whole House when I say that we will all welcome your leadership and guidance in the months and years ahead.
I call the Father of the House, Sir Edward Lee.
Mr. Speaker-elect, as the first backbencher to speak in this Parliament, I seem to remember that almost the very first thing you said, almost before you even arrived in the chair to start your distinguished career as our Speaker, you said that your primary job was to defend us backbenchers. And I know that you will do that with enormous spirit and diligence. I know that this place is primarily about great events and the government being held to account by the opposition, but it's also about the right and the duty for all of us backbenchers, even if some of our views are a bit idiosyncratic, to have our views and to have our say. We all welcome the fact that we are such a diverse Parliament in every single way, but above all, we are a Parliament of a diversity of views. We are all equal, although, to be fair, some are more equal than others. But you will defend our right to speak our mind, to hold the government to account. I'd like to pay tribute to my predecessor, Sir Peter Bottomley, who gave such wonderful service to this House. And he sent me a lovely little note today. He said, "Have fun, do some good, and make people happy." And you, Mr. Speaker, I think you stand up every single day And you can't make all of us happy all the time, but you try and make most of us happy for most of the time. Thank you very much.
The Member of the House, Diane Abbott.
I would like to congratulate the Speaker-elect on his election and say this. He has been a Speaker through tumultuous times, but he has never failed to serve with grace and expertise and fairness. I would also like to congratulate the 304 new members of Parliament who have entered Parliament after this election and say to them, it is a great job and you will never regret coming here. I would also like to congratulate the officers of the House who have organised such a meticulous and careful induction. I remember when I was a new MP, they just gave you a bunch of keys and told you to get on with it. So I have to congratulate the officers. I would also like to say that when I was a new member in 1987, there were only 40 female members of Parliament. Today we have 264. And some of us are glad that we have lived to see this. And I can't speak about the increased numbers of female members of Parliament without referencing my predecessor, Baroness Harriet Harman, who did so much to work to have an equal and diverse House. We are going into very tumultuous times. And historically, this House has played a role in these events, both nationally and internationally. And I'm sure it will be the same going forward, and we will be presided over in the excellent way of the Speaker-elect.
I call the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey.
Mr. Speaker-elect, it is a real pleasure and privilege to say on behalf of these benchers, congratulations on your re-election. You know only too well how tough a task you're taking on, so thank you for agreeing to serve. You've shown time and again your commitment to the vital role this House plays in holding the government of the day to account. The new government of the day, as the Mother of the House has just said, faces a very difficult task, clearing up the mess it has inherited. We on these benches will hold the government to account. That is our job. We will focus on the health and care crisis. We will focus on ending the sewage scandal. We will focus on helping people with the cost of living crisis. Mr. Speaker-elect, the new government has a huge majority, and therefore it's a particularly difficult job for the Speaker to help the opposition parties as it does its job in holding the government to account. I'm sure you'll do it with independence and impartiality, as you always have done. And we on these benches want to work constructively with you as you do that, as the largest third-party force in this Parliament for over 100 years. And for new members, can I say, Mr. Speaker-elect has always been a real champion for the security and safety of all members and all our staff, as well as looking after our health and welfare, and we are grateful to you for doing that, sir. Just yesterday, you asked after my health following my active campaign. And the House may be interested to know that after I had reassured you about my health, you expressed real enthusiasm about bungee jumping. So can I congratulate you again and wish you the very best for this Parliament?
It's National Party, Stephen Flynn.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I wish to begin by welcoming all new members to the Chamber, in particular those members from Scottish constituencies. There's probably a few more new members from Scottish constituencies than I would like to have seen, but I do look forward to working constructively with you to deliver in the best interest of the people that we are all so fortunate to represent. To you, Mr Speaker-elect, I think it's safe to say that me and you didn't always see eye to eye during the course of the last Parliament. But in politics and in life, I think it's important to let bygones be bygones and to focus on the future. And I think events of that time showed us that me and you have quite a lot in common when it comes to both then and indeed the general election, because despite the best efforts and indeed the best intentions of certain people, we both managed to hang on to the seats that we hold so dear. Mr Speaker, I do look forward to working constructively with you over the course of the coming weeks, months and years to allow us to best represent the people that we respect in the finest traditions of this House. Thank you very much.
I now call the Leader of the DUP, Gavin Robinson.
Congratulations, Mr Speaker-elect. We are thrilled to see you back in your seat, but for those new members of Parliament who have yet to understand just how this place works, some of them will learn through time that Jim Shannon needed no further encouragement. And so, whilst the reference was appreciated, no doubt, by his mother and others, others will learn to see the consequences of it. Mr Speaker, we have all survived, and some of us indeed enjoyed, an energetic election campaign. All of us will have experienced the odd one who approached you and said, "I'm not voting for you." I had my fair share. No surprise in that. But in the Guildhall Square in Londonderry, somewhere I wouldn't expect to get too many votes, this man came up and he said, "I'm not voting for you. I'm voting for Lindsay Hoyle." He was a Chorley man, and he impressed upon me the constituency grounding you have, the commitment you have to your community, the length of service you have given him and his neighbours, you and your neighbours, and he impressed upon me how fondly you are thought of within your home constituency. And I, in turn, was able to reflect to him how you have risen within the office you hold, how over the last number of years we have seen just how important it is to have a true champion for us as backbench representatives in Parliament. You have given us that. And it was a pleasure for me to reflect to him and have the ability to reflect to you and the House today just how fond we are of you, the solemnity that you bring to the office you hold, but that you never lose either the steadfast or the chirpy nature of your Lancashire roots. So thank you for putting yourself forward and being prepared to serve us, this House and democracy in this way. I, on behalf of my party colleagues, and I trust those others representing Northern Ireland as well, wish you well and thank you for it.
I now call the Leader of Reform UK, Nigel Farage.
Thank you. Mr Speaker-elect, thank you very much indeed. We are the new kids on the block. We have no experience in this Parliament whatsoever, even though some of us have tried many times over the years previously to get here. So we can't judge you from working in this place, but we can judge you from the way the outside world sees you. And I don't just mean the United Kingdom, I mean the world, because Prime Minister's Questions time is global box office politics, and it's pretty clear to everybody that you act with great neutrality, that you have brought tremendous dignity to the role as Speaker, so we absolutely endorse you entirely for this job. And it is, I must say, in marked contrast to the little man that was there before you and besmirched the office so dreadfully, in doing his best to overturn the biggest democratic result in the history of the country. We support you, sir, fully.
I now call the leader of Plaid Cymru, Liz Saville-Roberts.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Lefarydd, and I too rise to congratulate you on your re-election as Speaker of this House and to wish you well, of course, in presiding over this historic session of the new Parliament. And I'm heartened that for the first time in history, the proportion of women elected here is over 40%, and more than half of those are new to this House. It is fantastic to see steady progress towards proper representation. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to congratulate not just the incoming government for their victory, but also the smaller parties in this place. All of us here, whether we belong to the largest parties, the smallest parties, or no parties at all, we were all elected in the same way. Whatever the size of our parliamentary grouping, the principle of one vote, one value is the foundation of our democracy, and that principle should be cherished and defended for the sake of all our constituents. And I repeat now to the House, Mr. Speaker, what I said upon your election all those years ago. All those constituents are equal and they all deserve respect. We begin the work of representing and championing our constituents, and I have every confidence, Mr. Speaker, that you will continue to ensure that representatives here are treated fairly, because our constituents should be treated fairly too. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
The co-leader of the Green Party, Adrian Ramsey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker-elect, and congratulations on the support you have received from across this House today. And I can already say on behalf of the new cohort of Green MPs that we have been very pleased with the support you have given us, where you've shown that you go out of your way to support new members in this House and support MPs from all parties to be able to hold the government to account and represent our constituents. And I know I speak on behalf of all the Green MPs, and I'm sure all the new MPs, in saying we are very conscious that we are here first and foremost to be constituency MPs, to represent our residents, and we appreciate your support in enabling us to do that. May I associate myself with the remarks of the Prime Minister about the importance of politics being about public service. And I very much hope in this new Parliament we can all move to a less tribal form of politics, where we work together, where we can agree and move things forward in the national interest. Mr. Speaker-elect, thank you for your support and congratulations.
I now call the leader of the SDLP, Colm Eastwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm very glad to be back. I'm very glad to see the results of that election. Many people in Northern Ireland are delighted with it, and we look forward to holding the new government to account for the promises that they've made to the people of the north of Ireland. I want to take this opportunity also to welcome all the new members, even the ones that I profoundly disagree with. The one piece of advice I would give every new member here is to remember that the Speaker doesn't just chair the meetings. He's the boss. He is in charge of everything around this place, and it would do well for you not to fall out with him. In fact, even a bit of sucking up sometimes is good. I want to take this opportunity, as I say that, Mr. Speaker, to thank you and to congratulate you for all the fantastic work that you did over the last Parliament. You were a champion, as you said yourself, for the backbenchers of this place. A champion for the smaller parties, even when some of us pushed very, very close to the line when we felt that certain things had to be put on the record of this House. You were there, he knows what I'm talking about, you were there to protect us from some of the legal authorities who would like to get at us some of these times. But anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for that. I wish you all the best in corralling this new House. It is very diverse in terms of representation and in terms of opinion. And I look forward to the end of tribal politics. I think that'll be a sight to behold. Congratulations.
I call Sorcha Lucy Eastwood on behalf of the Alliance Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I warmly congratulate you on your re-election as Speaker-elect. I am here as the new MP for Lagan Valley and representative for the Alliance Party of Northern Ireland. My presence here demonstrates a changing, more shared and integrated Northern Ireland, and of that in alliance we are very proud. You have managed business smoothly and fairly, including ensuring that smaller parties have had their voices heard. Given the greater diversity of parties in this House, this leadership and precedent becomes even more important. I also want to put on record how well you represented Parliament on the world stage and at the time of the passing of our late Queen and the coronation of our new King. I also want to associate myself with the remarks from the Prime Minister about this job being of public service. All of us in this House do owe a debt of gratitude to our constituents. I will never forget the constituents of Lagan Valley, and I join with everybody in the whole House in looking forward to committing to public service for all. Thank you, Speaker-elect.
Finally, I call Jim Allister on behalf of the Traditional Unionist Voice.
Mr. Speaker-elect, I join in the congratulations and best wishes to you. To this point, of course, I have observed your speakership from a distance. Now I will have the benefit of observing it rather more close up. And with me on my best behaviour and you at your tolerant best, I trust that we will have a mutually cordial relationship going forward. And I will certainly draw upon your guidance and the experience that you bring to this House. As I come to this House, I come on behalf of constituents in Northern Ireland with a very clear message that Northern Ireland's place within this United Kingdom must be restored. We must end the partitioning of our kingdom by a foreign border. And we must end a situation where 300 areas of law in Northern Ireland are not controlled by this House, not controlled by Stormont, but controlled by a foreign parliament. That is an appalling constitutional affront. And my focus in this House will be in playing my part in seeking to redress that gross inequity.
Can I just say thank you for all the kind words from the parties? I just will be remiss of me not to say thank you to the previous deputy speakers. I'm going to thank Nigel, Rosie, Eleanor and Sir Roger for stepping in as he was needed. So it is a big thank you to all of them.
I have to signify to the House the pleasure of His Majesty that the House should present their Speaker this day at 3:45 p.m. in the House of Peers for His Majesty's royal approbation.
The House is suspended until 3:45. Thank you.
Well, there it is. For the last hour, we've been watching the